Hey, welcome everybody to Talking Niagara this morning. It is June 23rd, so we had our solstice weekend this weekend, eh?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. And it's bloody hot.
Yeah, it's going to be this way till Tuesday, apparently.
Yeah. So whatever you do make sure you stay safe. And we'll be talking about that at some point. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So Niagara's housing starts have fallen 23% from last year.
23%. And it says, and this is no really surprise to me,
This is
that they're not
housing.
selling. There is a need for this housing that they have built, but there's no buyers or less buyers. Well, why do you think that is? People can't afford it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
province's idea of filling up places up with houses to bring the house pricing down hasn't really worked, has it? There's a surplus of supply, but even at that, people who need houses
There's already a
can't afford to
surplus
buy
of
them.
supply.
Hmm?
And we'd already talked about the fact there was already a surplus of supply. We got about 1 million homes across Canada that are empty.
Well, the problem was to build a lot of homes to make them
Yeah.
more available. Therefore, you can bring the house prices down. And
Yeah.
when we didn't have enough homes, that pushed the price up. Well, the price hasn't really leveled up. In this particular area, even though they have a lot of homes, they can't sell them, even though people want them.
Yeah.
So what can you conclude from that? And it really didn't say that in the article, is the fact that the people who need the homes can't afford them. Otherwise, they would be buying them.
Yeah.
They want them,
And
particularly single family homes, but they
and that
but
actually
they can't
also
buy them.
And that also has an impact on the rental market because, of course, if the landlords can't buy them because they're too expensive, the tenants sure as heck can't rent them at an affordable rate either.
Well, that seems to be the only thing in this whole mix that might be a bit of a savior is apartments going up. At least people can afford those. But even though they have a lot of plans to put up a fair amount of apartments, it'll take several years in order to put them up. That's what the article says.
I know. Because Niagara Falls has got a project of 300 to 400 unit downtown complex, and St. Catharines has a project at 320 Geneva Street, which is starting construction this month, for bridge housing for people transitioning out of homelessness, and future phases will add rent geared to income and supportive housing. So, so there are initiatives going on, but of course, as you quite rightly just pointed out, you start a 300 unit downtown complex. Even if you're putting a spade in the ground today, it's going to take years to actually get it, available.
This is nationwide, apparently. It says, but it's not just sluggish sales keeping shovels out of the ground as newly built homes sit on the market. Experts point to a mix of elevated supply, rising costs, tariffs, and economic uncertainties fueling the downturn, with builders choosing to hit pause rather than risk unsold inventory. I don't know how the tariffs are affecting this, except that the fact that people don't know maybe if they were going to have a job.
Well, that I think is how tariffs affect it. Tariffs might affect the cost of lumber, etc., coming in.
No, we have the lumber. We've got all kinds of lumber. It is mostly other things, yeah.
Other things, not, I said etc. We may have the lumber, but we might not have everything.
No, we now have a surplus of lumber because the United States has put a tariff on our lumber.
Yeah.
So but still, in it, and but there are those steel 2x4s basically that they probably come from the States. I'm just sort of guessing, and there's a lot of stuff from China, and like doorknobs and faucets and things like that.
All of those sort of things are impacted by tariffs.
Yeah. So I don't know how, but we're not really tariffing those things from China. The U.S. is, but maybe we get them from the U.S.
Yeah, exactly. We may not be, but we're getting them from the U.S., which is putting the price up.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know how. Anyway, so people are frightened about that. A friend of mine in Florida told me that they had an explosion of car sales in Florida because the advertisements on TV is get your car before the tariffs come in. And so there was a huge amount of people buying cars of all kinds because all of them were afraid of the price increases on any kind of car, not just foreign ones.
It makes a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense because irrespective of where the car is coming from, as we've already discussed, there's going to be tariffs potentially on it. And, that gives a bit more certainty, buy it now, or face price up, price increases later.
Yes, that's exactly why they do it.
Yeah.
So the people that are savvy enough to understand that tariffs will increase the prices of everything are trying to buy things now. That's why so many companies have front-loaded.
Yeah.
Front-loaded stocks. They've bought excess stocks in order to be able to fill up their warehouses before the tariffs kick in.
Yeah.
And I don't know, and of course we're having our own fight with China. We put 100% tariff on their cars, and they put 100% tariff on our canola oil and other things as a revenge move. So it's I don't know how much tariffs are really affecting the housing. I think it's the general idea that things are going to get more expensive. But I think basically what it is we're behind the amount of housing starts we've had in this part of the year at a time when the demand for single family homes is still there. The problem, of course, is these are now unaffordable because the damage has been done. The real estate has pushed up so high that people can't afford what they want. It's not like they're like before. You just went shopping around. You put up your house. A few months later, you sold it when 100 people went walking through it, and one person decides they'd like to buy it. Then you bargain and you come for the price. It's not like that. It's just that people go looking for houses and they just can't afford them.
Yeah. And in fact, actually, probably 10 years ago, even somebody with a fairly low wage is already sitting on a in their pocket, they've already got a nice little mortgage deal.
Yeah.
Today they're going looking at houses more wishfully than anything else.
The banks are afraid to lend too. That's another thing.
Yeah.
They never got over the market collapse of 2008, subprime mortgages, even though that really didn't affect us much up here. That's still in the ether, so to speak.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So we have the ability to make, like we've often talked, you only have so many tradesmen, you can only build up so many houses at a time. But now we are in the curious situation where even the houses that the limited amount of tradesmen can put up, is they can't sell them, at least at this point in the year, because they are unaffordable. That's the only reason why I can think of. Like, people want them, but they can't afford them.
Yeah. Well, I think banks and mortgage companies also sometimes have a bit to deal with this because you think about this that if you're renting a place and you're renting, let's say that you're what you pay monthly on rent is 2,500, and if you were to go and buy that house, and you would pay 1,500, for example. Well, why wouldn't you offer a mortgage to that particular tenant, especially if they've got this a good record at paying the tenancy? The banks are looking at things the wrong way.
CMHC's Anthony Passarelli, the head economist for CMHC, says the storyline is played out in most markets, I would say, particularly in Ontario this year. When you look at a lack of building activity, a lot of what that is just due to all uncertainty out there.
Yeah.
Uncertainty. There we have that word that we keep hearing over and over again.
The uncertainty.
The highest of economists, from the Fed chief to everyone else down, and of our own politician as an economist. So uncertainty out there with the economy and with home prices. There are many headwinds in the market so far this year, and that are restraining all construction activity. That really is singularly ironic. We need the houses. They finally building a lot of the houses that we need, and the people can't afford the houses or are afraid to buy them because they don't know of their economic future.
That's another possibility. Don't know what their economic future is. And, this is when we were looking at tariffs and the stock market earlier on. The stock market was in sheer panic because of the uncertainty of those tariffs.
Yeah, right now that's all settled out for now.
Yeah,
because they kind of getting used to the idea that that Trump will say one thing one day and another thing the other day, and China calls him the taco president. Trump always chickens out kind of guy, at least with tariffs, and he seems to be waffling that way back and forth all the time. 1 minute is this and 1 minute is that, and the kind of thing. It's like he's throwing spaghetti on the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah.
And the idea that you can't really trust him. That 1 minute he says something, you try to oblige him, and then he just turns around and does something else. Like the Japanese recently, very frustrated, canceled appointments with security appointments with the U.S. that they've had every year because the U.S. says you have to bring your defense budget up to 3%. The Japanese agreed. Everything was okay. And then at the last minute, they said, we changed your mind. It's got to be 3.5 now. So the Japanese, well, the heck with you. We're not meeting with you.
Yeah.
You keep changing your mind. We don't know what we want.
Yeah.
And
changing your mind, you see, that's the worst thing about any government, changing their mind. You don't want, things like housing projects. Yes. A city can change its mind month to month on certain things. But when it comes to big government, national government, the last thing you actually want is a government that changes its mind.
And that's what happens with the U.S. constantly.
Yeah.
What am I gonna say today? Kind of administration. Yeah. Everybody says, well, that's part of the art of the deal, but it's a lot. It's leading to a lot of uncertainty. That's why the Fed chief's not going to change the interest rates and all that, because these are guys that base their decisions on hard data. They can't go around changing their mind every day. So
absolutely. Yeah. The other one, by the way, so we got a 3 to 400 unit place in downtown Niagara Falls. There's also another 3 to 400 unit building going up in at 320 Geneva Street, which is supposed to be well, they've termed it as bridge housing, so it's going to be bridging the gap between homelessness and back to the community.
Here's essentially what the problem is, or one of the problems. Chief Executive Officer for Niagara Home Builders Association, Chuck McShane, said that the industry is facing a difficult time because of the uncertainty. There we go. There's that word coming up another
uncertainty.
time. Costs are rising. Banks are wary of funding loans. That could be a big part of it.
Yeah.
And new supply is not moving, with some people who purchased homes delaying closing. Everyone across the industry is just jittery right now. If you could tell them why would you build them, said McShane, are you going to stick hundreds of thousands of dollars just to speculate whether you can sell them? So right now there's a slowdown in building because people aren't buying.
Yeah.
What does Mike say? Come on, guys. Unreachable real estate has destroyed this country, accepting bags of money in casinos, high-end cars. Real estate has allowed corruption to control housing costs. I think it's down here. I think the costs were raised when when a huge migration from the GTA came down this way over the space of the last 20 years, particularly after COVID. It just spiked again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, Mike is right insofar as the housing costs being too high.
Well, of course they're too high.
Even the affordable housing is too high.
Yeah. So what Mike says is the corruption. I don't know which corruptions he's talking about there, but I wouldn't doubt it that corruption has something to do with it. Of course, there are going to be speculators and people who try to stimulate negativity in the housing market just to keep it high. And he's right about that. They were building, high-end real estate for the longest times. Now they claim they have all these so-called family-type dwellings that families can't afford.
Yeah.
And I'm not so sure it's just about the uncertainty. I'm of course, like people in GM, who's going to buy a house if you work at GM right now with the tariffs and things? That industry could collapse. Are you going to buy something if you worked at Ford? Ford's going through a terrible time right now. Are they've done a bunch of layoffs. The steel industry, what are they going to do? We got a tariff of 50%, and that's from Stelco, and Stelco belongs to an American company.
Yeah, if you were thinking about Cliffs. Yeah, if you were thinking about buying a new home and you worked for one of those above organizations, you'd be thinking, well, hang on, pause a minute. Hey, I can deal with the home I've got for a little while longer.
Yeah. And I'm going to have to, because I don't know what's going to happen. And now there's another potential war. That'll mean the gas and oil prices, if that continues the way it continues on, if it doesn't get resolved very quickly, we're looking at higher oil prices. We're looking at a stifled world economy.
Yeah.
So
you're talking about, of course, what's going on in Iran with the strikes in Iran this weekend, the US airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facility.
Yeah, we have a potential forever war about to happen. It might not happen, but of course, people are looking at that. that means the economy is going to, unless you are a part of the military industrial complex in the United States, who are very happy about all that. If you don't work with them, you got to wonder, how is this going to affect my bottom line when reduced economy and economic growth will affect my bottom line? Will I lose my job? Everything. And of course, it has spillover effects in Canada in a huge way. Well, it's a worldwide thing. So everybody's very uncertain right now. And
Iran has warned
to sort itself out.
Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi says the US crossed a very big red line when striking its nuclear facilities. Now, Iran, of course, is saying that these facilities are all for nuclear power. And of course, the US is saying that they're building enhanced nuclear capabilities.
Well, they're playing a game, basically. When the US pulled out of the agreement that Obama had made with them, where they had inspectors on the ground all the time.
Yeah.
Then the Iranians played the dangerous game of showing everybody that they could build a bomb if they wanted to, kind of enriching uranium up to 60%, which means it's a very, very quick fix to get it up to 90%. I think it has to be at least 90% before it is fissile material, which means it can be made into a bomb. Now, normally, the reason why Iran is saying, well, it was for peaceful purposes, well, it can't really be for peaceful purposes if all you need is enrichment up to 4 or 5%. If they're enriching it to 60% and it's just quick to make it 90%, which is fissile material, then you're not being real. You're not actually being very honest. But the fact of the matter is they haven't got any kind of delivery systems and all that. I think it was a bluff on their part that didn't play out. I'm not so sure they were considering having nuclear bombs as a deterrent. Remember, they do have a neighbor called Pakistan who has a bomb.
Yeah.
Who has a nuclear bomb.
I'm not very happy about Pakistan having a bomb, but still.
Yeah, so they're exactly not they're not too happy about their neighbor who they have ideological and they've differences with, one being a Sunni and of course Iran being a Shia power. They're afraid of Pakistan just as much as they are afraid of Israel. So they want a deterrent, or at least they consider having a deterrent. Nobody wants them to have a bomb. Nobody wants them to have a bomb. The EU, Russia, China, nobody wants them to have a bomb.
But dismantling that Obama initiative was a bad thing.
Very bad, because there's nothing that the Iranians could do to increase fissile material without inspectors crawling all over them, because the world knows how much uranium is and how much material is, and et cetera, et cetera. And these bombs that most likely have destroyed Fordo and the other locations may not have destroyed the nuclear, the 60% enriched material, because they knew this was coming. So if they were dumb and left it there, well, that's their problem. But they probably moved all that material, because it's very valuable material. I mean, it cost them a lot of money to make it, even if they're going to use it for their nuclear reactors. It's like a lot of money. So what they likely did was move it to a safe place before they knew the bombs were coming. They knew the bombs were coming, of course, because Trump hasn't been honest with them. Basically, they were supposed to have peace talks in Oman, and they said there will be no strikes on Iran until the peace talks were over, and they were supposed to meet in Oman, but 2 days before that, they bombed the crap out of Iran, including the chief negotiator. What does that sound like? Remember, they took out the chief negotiator for Hamas in Iran. Well, they took out the chief negotiator, a bunch of nuclear scientists, and tried to decap as many of the military positions as they could.
More of the taco president, yes.
Well, this time he did what he was said to do, but it seems to be
Yeah,
he's led down the path
saying,
by Netanyahu.
But he was originally saying, last week he was saying, oh, let's see what will happen in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, he said within 2 weeks, but that's all. Well, it turns out to be a ruse. The Americans at first said, "Oh, this is nothing but Israel doing their thing. We have nothing to do with it." Then it became very clear that they helped them plan it. It became very clear that they were part of the ruse, that they planned these the negotiations, and Israel struck. So that made the Americans look dumb, because they said, well, there will be no strikes until after the peace negotiations. They were supposed to meet, and they bombed the crap out. The Israelis bombed the crap out of them. Then the Americans said, we had nothing to do with it. But then when it was a big success, they said, we had lots to do with it. And we've reconsidered. Maybe we'll bomb them, but we'll give them 2 weeks to think about it. 2 days later, they bombed them.
Yeah.
So
and the interesting thing
is who's going to trust them anymore? Who's going to trust them?
And the interesting thing is about this attack is it was apparently a launch from U.S. soil, and the bombers landed in the Indian Ocean, on carriers in the Indian Ocean.
Well, what they did, it was part of the ruse was to show the bombers going from the west to Guam, but there was another set of bombers going east from the United States using bombers. Now, it was a textbook operation. The Iranians had nothing they could shoot them down with. They had no protection against anything of that kind.
And these are stealth bombers, right?
They're stealth bombers. Nobody's got any. Well, maybe the Chinese, but nobody else has anything that would be able to detect them and shoot them down. And obviously not the Iranians. But it is a massively costly operation.
Yeah.
And the bombs themselves cost an incredible amount of money. All the missiles that they are providing Israel to shoot down incoming missiles cost anywhere from $100,000 to $4 million. The THAAD ones being like the $4 million. So every time they shoot one of them up, the THAAD ones, that's $4 million. The other ones are hundreds of thousands of dollars every time. And you're talking about at a time when the United States is broke. They're paying out enormous amounts of money for the war in Gaza and the war against Iran. Israel doesn't buy any of that. The U.S. Congress gives them money to then buy stuff from the United States.
Yeah.
So who's making money here? It's the military industrial complex is making scads of cash.
Yeah.
But nobody else is, and it's going to be able to stifling the economy. Let's hope this thing doesn't blow up into a regional forever war, but there is potential for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and worst, it could be, there could be World War status, of course.
Well, if you begin to, China relies heavily on the oil from Iran. They will view it as an existential threat if you mess with their oil supplies. So what you don't want to do is bring them into the conflict, because they could supply Iran surreptitiously even continually, so the war never ends. The missiles that are raining down on Israel never end, and potentially there'll be on and off attacks on American bases that will go on and on and on and drain the American treasury. That's what happened in Iraq. That's what happened in Afghanistan, and it happened in Vietnam too.
And Europe at the same time is trying to talk to Iran about continuing diplomacy.
It's going to be pretty hard to have Iran come to the table when you bomb them and say, like Trump said, well, we bombed them. He said something about it's from God, and or I don't know. He mentioned God in a speech,
Yeah.
which I
do wish, every damn leader who uses God in the name of of their country winning a battle, get over it.
So yeah, but he did, because he knows there's a lot of Christian Zionists. There's a lot of Christian Zionists in his background there. However, it has split MAGA. MAGA, half of MAGA does not want another forever war, and he's sort of set up for another forever war.
Yeah.
Now, he may have got away with it, may be able to drop only 3 bombs, and that was that. But if he continues, they bomb the crap out of him. Well, they tried that in Laos. They tried that in Vietnam. They tried it in Afghanistan. They tried it in Iraq. It never works. All they do is a lot of damage and kill a lot of people, but it really doesn't change anything on the ground.
Basically, and UK, France, Europe, are not happy with this, with everything that's going on right now.
Well, everyone knows that if there's the fissile material that they're looking for, they would have removed it. Everybody knows that, because they've been saying we're going to bomb the crap out of you. So what they would have done is taken whatever fissile material they already have and hide it away. They would have taken it away from there, and they probably maybe have taken it to a bunch of different locations. So the fissile material is good. We don't know how much damage they did to the Fordo. Probably they wiped it out, because these bombs are exceptional, but we really don't know how much damage they have done, and of course they have delayed the nuclear centrifuges and all that, but not forever, because they have all the knowledge to just kick it up again.
Yeah.
And next time they're going to hide it. They're going to hide it as best they can. The problem here is it's told the whole world, like Ukrainians gave up their nuclear bombs with guarantees from Russia and the United States that anyone who attacked them, that Russia or the United States will come to their aid. Well, Russia's the one that attacked them, and the U.S. really only did half-assed come to their aid. That tells the whole world, look, if you give away your nuclear bombs, you're going to be attacked, and nobody's going to come and help you. It's telling Iran, part of the argument here from the Iranians is, if we had a bomb already, we would have had a deterrent, and this wouldn't have happened. That's part of the argument. And every other little nation is thinking, we better get a bomb, because if we don't have a bomb, we don't have a deterrent. Even Saudi Arabia is refusing the idea of having their own nuclear research examined, because they're afraid that they might have to go and get their own bomb. I know, it's ridiculous. It's pushing countries into having a bomb. And remember, they said of nuclear, they said of North Korea, they'll never get a bomb. Well, they got a bomb, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
So sooner or later, Iran could get a bomb, because all this is going to settle down. If they want regime change, they're going to have to go boots on the ground. And do they really want that? Because that would be another forever war.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, moving on. We got some comments. Okay. Okay.
Hello, Betty Zoom.
Morning, Karen.
Karen. Oh, hi. These people are saying good morning to each other. Hey, don't forget to say good morning to us.
I feel cyber warfare will be happening very shortly, causing chaos. And
yeah, that's
Angela's asking how many people actually believe that Trump intervening in this war is actually going to stop escalating violence. I don't believe it either.
No, I right now I can only see more violence coming. The Iranian response, of course, they say, okay, we dropped these bombs. Now it's time for peace. That's what Trump says. Now it's time for peace. Do you think the Iranians are going to come to the peace deal?
No,
they've been offered the peace deal in Oman, and they were backstabbed on that basically because they were attacked 2 days before that negotiation was happening, and they went to the EU and to see what they could do in the EU, and that's when Trump dropped the bombs on them. They're going to say, what point is it to go to negotiations? Because every time we do, you bomb us before they even start, or you say 2 weeks and then you bomb us 2 days later.
Yeah.
Well, how can we trust you?
Exactly. Okay, moving on. Councillor Victor Pietrangelo has been cleared of wrongdoing related to the Code of Conduct Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
Yeah, he's been completely exonerated. Completely. There is a report that you can get on the city council lines where the ethics investigator there is integrity commissioner has gone through point by point by point. Legally, he's fine. I don't know if the person, there's a Collins, I think, or Connor, her name is, put out the was the one that raised the issue. She's the one that asked for the ethics investigation. Legally, he's fine. Pietrangelo goes to his lawyer, and basically what they have determined, point by point by point, that he did everything he's supposed to do. Now, whether or not this is regards to land that he and his family have bought in and around the new hospital, which once that land was sold to them, it almost immediately went up in value because the hospital needs more land, and like it was just a very, very good speculative deal that they made. But Pietrangelo may have been privy to what was going to happen there, and that was the whole argument. It was conflict of interest that he took. He took advantage of his position at city council to buy land in and around the new hospital for him and his family because he knew that that land value was going to go up very soon. And that's exactly what happened. However, according to the commissioner's report, he didn't do anything wrong getting it.
I was going to say the fact is that he lives in that area, right?
I don't know where he lives.
As far as I'm aware, one of said properties was actually his. You know,
I think he buys property. Remember, he got away with. He bought that property from for 1/16 the value from the Stanford Volunteer firefighters that Fireman's Park. He got a piece of land there for $1,000. It was supposed to have cost $16,000.
I think he is a property speculator.
Yes, that's what I think, and him and his family have all done the same thing. That's what they do, speculate. Now, could that have given him a huge? It's hard to think that it wouldn't have given him an advantage when he's looking at what's going on year by year in city council, figuring, well, this piece of property is probably going to be a lot more a good speculate, a good purchase. This too. But the case could not be brought against him because he has a long history of following the rules and taking advice from his lawyer.
Yeah.
So even if he was able to determine that these pieces of land would be prime pieces of land, learning that from his time in city council, seeing how things are developing, that doesn't mean that he's done anything wrong.
Yeah. And the thing about this is that if you think about it, on city council, you get to see a lot of reports about a lot of potential land development. And if you bought an area, if you bought an area simply because you thought, well, that might well be a part of a future development, you could be wrong, because in fact, actually, you could end up voting against said development, months down the line anyway.
It's hard to think that he doesn't know, doesn't get some insights into land in and around the area. And once you do have, and he seems to be a fairly wealthy guy, so once you're at that point and you can afford to speculate, of course, you're going to get the insights from being in city council. Yeah. But if you're a regular citizen studying city council, you could do the same thing that he would. So, yeah, seriously, a private citizen who is not a councilor could make the same sort of speculations based on just city council information you can get from city council.
Absolutely, yeah. So, in fact, actually, the average land speculator could make money easily from just following city council meetings. Doesn't even have to appear at the council chamber.
Yeah. The idea was this moral or is it legal?
Yeah.
It's hard to think that Pietrangelo did not get some huge insights onto this property, but he did everything legally right. Is it morally right to use that kind of information that that is presented to him year by year, day by day, to make these decisions? Is it morally correct? Well, I can't really say that either, because if I could figure it out, then you could figure it out. It's his idea, I guess. But he's been very, very careful. He has the wherewithal. He's got the money to have the lawyer do all his talking for him. And that's what he did when it came to the strip of land that that Stanford firefighters pretty well gifted him for $1,000. So the idea that he's done everything right is basically what these lawyers have said. Now, the people who brought the issue up do not have the advantage of having a lawyer to pick apart the arguments.
Yeah.
So they could not they couldn't investigate and dig any deeper as a lawyer could have done.
And the question about a lot of this anyway is that it's about degree. Probably what will happen is you might hear rumors on the market that, we might hear rumors on the market. Let's say, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of an area without actually starting a rumor. The old, for example, when the Canadian Tire moved, it was obviously that lot of land there was going to be redeveloped into something else. Shops, maybe, houses, maybe. You wouldn't necessarily know at the point when that was developed, when that was first became available. But if you were if you're sitting on city council, you may actually have already heard a pre-rumor that most of us on the street don't get to hear.
Yeah, but you would also, if you're in real estate, if your business was real estate, you would hear a lot of what was happening too, who is speculating what.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's not just political. It is like, so I said before that a lot of the information that Pietrangelo's family seems to have taken advantage of
It's
is
public domain.
publicly available.
Yeah.
So does this make it bad or just makes him smart? It doesn't look good. I mean, this is the second time he's up in front of the commissioner for a real estate thing. You know, just a couple of years ago, like I said, the Stanford volunteer firefighters gifted him with a hunk of land that happened to be a road allowance, I guess, in what is really Niagara on the Lake, because it crosses the border there, right? At that particular point.
It's where Dorchester Road would continue on into Niagara on the Lake. Yeah.
So that looked fishy to a lot of people. I think it was a mistake by Stanford firefighters to because Pietrangelo helped bail them out, so they were going to reward him. That didn't look good. You know, even though it was legally okay, it just didn't look good. This doesn't look good either. Although he didn't do anything wrong, I think I might have done the same thing if I was in his shoes, if I had the kind of money that he does to speculate. I might have done the same thing and not thought at all for a moment about the moral quandary, because it's legal. It's I would say, like, if I was him, I would say exactly what I said before. Anyone could have speculated on this piece of property with the same information that I have.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Niagara Falls also could face a constitutional challenge about its policy of signs in council chambers.
Yes. What's that group of women called?
I forget the name.
All right. We had a group of women. Wait till I get the article up. We had a group of women that came to Niagara Falls City Council.
Yeah.
They didn't make any, and they were protesting the fact that Councillor Mike Strange is still in council doing what he should be doing, or doing his job, when he is accused of beating a woman, assaulting a woman.
Yeah.
At Appleford and something, Mace, at a particular time, police came to a location in the early hours of the morning and found the woman had called them, and she showed signs of being assaulted. Mike Strange said he didn't do it. He says he's innocent. That's the quandary here. These women don't want him to be on council until this is settled, because this is sending the wrong message, that you are allowing a person who assaulted a woman on to do their duty. But the law says there's nothing in the law. I mean, this guy could have, being an axe murderer evidently, and nobody could stop him from sitting on council. He could be accused of being an axe murderer or any other crime, basically, and nothing will refuse him from being on council. Yeah. The other problem, of course, he is not being convicted, has he?
Yeah, exactly. And the point being is that we don't deal with anything until there's a conviction.
Yes. So I'm trying to get that article up so I can find what I had it written down. Anyway, so these are they were led by Councillor Bateman from the region, was sitting there. So she's a regional councillor, and she comes from a chamber that doesn't allow signs either. Yeah, now, these women all cooperated and were well behaved. They just had signs, and according to the Niagara Falls Regional or Niagara Falls City Council rules, you can't have signs.
And
But
I was opposed to that when they first brought it up. I think it was the wrong move by the city. Always have thought that. People, if you sit there, and you make a silent protest and you just put your sign up, I have no problem. It's the people who make rowdy protests that I've got the problem with.
yeah, so 3 women arrested for protesting. So they arrested three women, and the group who were arrested but not charged, including St. Catharines Regional Councilor Haley Bateman. Well, Haley's come and with her sign, but signs are not allowed in the regional council either. So that kind of the women of Ontario say no. That's where the signs were. The women of Ontario say no. That is what
the women of Ontario
if they name themselves that or not. But those were the signs.
Yeah,
they are not a group, an established group, I don't think. But they decided to come and said, this Mike Strange should be removed from council until this is resolved, because if he is guilty, it's a bad thing. But he hasn't been. It's a real dilemma. We've talked about this before. What do you do? He says he's innocent. She says he's guilty. It hasn't come to court yet. He got the mandate from the people to do a job.
Yeah.
For the city as a counselor. So what do you do? I know myself. I would have been if I was if I was accused and was innocent, I would say, hell with you. I'm going to keep doing my job because I've done nothing wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
But on the other hand, if Mike is found to be guilty, there's nothing in the law that says he has to be removed from his office. Nothing at all that requires him to retire or get out of the way. He could continue. Like I said, if he was an axe murderer,
albeit that he may face a time in jail.
I doubt it. I doubt it very much right now. It seems like it's 3:00 in the morning, so I don't know what happened there. You can pretty well figure everybody was 3 sheets to the wind. I'm guessing this was a party that got out of control. It's like 3 a.m. in the morning when the call came or something like that. It was very early. Even in a altered state of consciousness, let's put it that way, I have a hard time thinking that an ex-boxer would clip a woman even in a state of drunk, if he was in a state of drunkenness, or even if he was high beyond his it intruded on his rationality. I think that would be in the back of his mind, but I'm not trying to support him or anything. I'm just saying that it has to be gone through the courts.
Yeah, it has to go through the courts. Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's going to be tinged with this forever. And these women are not about to let him go to court and have it determined. They want him to remove himself as a symbol. But as soon as he removes himself from doing his job, it looks as if he's admitting guilt. So what does Mike Strange do?
Yeah.
And so you're trying to look at both sides of this issue. The women are incensed, of course, that you have somebody that assaulted another woman, or at least accused of it, sitting on city council. That is objectionable to them. However, it's objectionable to Mike Strange that they want him to be removed when he says he's innocent. I've been falsely accused. You want me to suffer for something I'm being falsely accused of. And we don't know if it's falsely accused or really accused or what happened. I have a feeling that it's just one drunken mess that happened in a party gone bad. But I don't know. That's my speculation. It's 3:00 in the morning. That's what's kind of giving it away for me.
Yeah, but even so, a sexual assault at 3:00 in the morning is still a sexual
It's not
assault.
a sexual assault. It wasn't a sexual assault. It was an assault.
Okay. An assault at 3:00 in the morning is still an assault.
Yeah, looks like it is alleged that he hit her or slapped her around or something. I don't know. No, it wasn't a sexual assault. Nothing of that kind.
Right, thank you for correcting me.
Yeah.
But an assault is still an assault.
Yeah.
Even at 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah. So it's going to be hard for Mike to live this down, no matter how, if he is pearly white innocent, it's still going to stick on him, unfortunately. And no matter what, because there will always be that nagging doubt: did he hit a woman? And and it is verboten in real men do not hit women.
Yeah,
basically.
Well, and actually, I'd find it surprising with a boxer as well, because in fact, actually, boxers are trained. That sort of thing is trained.
Yeah, he could get in a lot of trouble for hitting me if I was mouthing off to him and he hit me, even though he's a smaller man. He's a trained boxer.
Yeah.
So he get in a lot of trouble just for hitting somebody even bigger than himself, because he has his skills that he's built.
Yeah, because he has skills that you do. Yeah, he has skills that one assumes you do not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The last thing we should be talking about is stay safe with the heat warning. Keep yourself. Keep drinking fluids.
We got a heat wave coming. We've got.
Well, we're midway through it, at least until tomorrow.
Yeah, we got a heat wave coming, even with the Iranian war. that might cause a heat wave.
That might cause a bigger one.
Yeah. So, what do you think? My speculation on that is that the Iranians will not engage the U.S. forces for a very long time, because they're on triple, extra, double alert. They've brought in all kinds of resources from everywhere. That the Iranians will just keep dropping missiles on Israel as long as they last, and ignore the Americans for now. But the Houthis, their allies, have decided they had a ceasefire with the U.S., but now that ceasefire is gone because of what America did once they bombed. Once they bombed Iran, that deal is abrogated. Yeah. So the Houthis will start targeting U.S. shipping through the Suez Canal. Yeah. And the Straits of Hormuz could be closed. I don't think they will be really closed. Might be closed to warships, but they won't be closed to tankers, because that's the lifeline of the Iranian regime. And China wouldn't like it. So I don't know. I think the enemies of the United States, China and Russia, could see this as an opportunity to bleed the United States. They are already bleeding them with the amount of missiles they're supplying, planes and the missiles they're supplying Israel, let alone their own, because they're all paid for by the American taxpayer. So every missile that goes up, every THAAD missile, every Iron Dome missile, every David Slings missile comes from the United States and is paid for by the American taxpayer. So it's going to be a very expensive thing. So I hope that this is over very quickly and they can come to some sort of deal. The Iranians are not going to accept that that they cannot manufacture their own material for peaceful purposes. They're not going to accept that. But there has to be the ICGA that the Obama had negotiated along with Russia and China and Britain and France was the best thing, because nobody could break out of there. It would take an entire year if the if the Iranians pulled out of that deal, it would take an entire year for them to be able to build up fissile material with those eyes all watching them. But unfortunately, the U.S. pulled out, which has led to this, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's the truth of the matter is that had they stayed in this from the from the outset, we'd have a better idea about what the Iranians were doing.
I think Trump's just Netanyahu's boy. Basically,
yeah, right now
he's just used him like no other president has fell for that for 33 years. For 33 years, Netanyahu has wanted the United States to bomb Iran. Every so many years he's saying any day now they're going to have a bomb. He said that for 33 years. And so finally he was able to get Trump, the peace president, the so-called peace president, to go after Iran for him. I think he's delighted that he's got a chump like Trump to manipulate. But anyway, I hope it doesn't blow up. And one other thing I like to say, as I say every day, don't forget Gaza. This has diverted our attention to the slaughtering that's going on in Gaza, that slow burn of a genocide that's going on there. It hasn't stopped, has it?
No.
Israelis have killed way over 50,000, 55,000.
And this is a diversion. This is a diversion to get our eyes away from Gaza. Look at Iran, ladies and gentlemen, while we continue our atrocities in Gaza.
Yes, and it's very easy to manipulate the North American people because of their level of ignorance of the Palestinian situation. I was talking to a guy, a friend of mine, and he had very little idea of how the Zionist movement. And he said to me, he says, "Why don't all these Arab nations want the Palestinians? Why can't they take them in?" And I said to him, because that's their home for one thing, and for another thing, which I didn't say at that time, what I say now, is that Jordan is full of Palestinians. Syria is full of Palestinians. Lebanon is full of Palestinians. Egypt. Yeah. When I was in Libya, they had a Palestinian.
In fact, actually, when I was in Saudi Arabia, they had Palestinians there. They treat them like shit.
Yeah, and they also they have them in Qatar, in Oman, and everywhere else, because there is a Palestinian diaspora, because the people of Palestine got pushed off their land, and where they had to go. Some of them went to the West Bank. Some of them went to Gaza. Huge amounts of them went to Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Egypt. So they have already accepted millions of Palestinians. So that argument just doesn't float.
Yeah. All right. And Dave?
Without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace and don't forget Gaza.